Hey, Nerd Herd, Dynasty Nerds here back again, and maybe or maybe not your fantasy football dynasty season is over. We don't know, but it's always a good time for a way too early 2023 rookie mock draft, Matt.
Ooh, maybe we'll talk about a mayor?
We might, and there's so many running backs to discuss. Can't wait. 2023's here. Can't
And
wait.
should you trade the 1-1? Let's talk about it.
Ready, set, hut, hut. Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Rich Dotson, here with my fellow nerds, Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
And Garrett Price.
How's it going?
It's going good. It's going okay. We're back after a little hiatus for the holidays. Happy New Year to all. Welcome to 2023 as our off-season commences today.
Mostly.
Even though the season is not over.
Right.
Kind of. Huge flux. We've been in weird times playing fantasy for the last couple of years with the COVID going on and now this, and obviously all prayers and best wishes for recovery for Damar Hamlin of Buffalo. But outside of that, the number one talk amongst fantasy leagues right now, the day after, is I think the common sense here is we're all wishing the best for Damar.
100%.
Yep, that's a good place to start.
And the question now is, how do you proceed with your fantasy football league championships dynasty? Because there's draft picks involved. There is money to be involved. And
just the pride of winning your league.
Yeah. I want to leave Tammy and say, hey, we're going to split the pot. I'm like, dude, I honestly don't even care about the money. Like, I just want my name on the trophy. He's like, yeah, me too. So we're splitting the pot, but we got to find a winner. And there's no right answer, unfortunately.
That's the thing. I feel like every single solution people have come up with in all the different leagues that I'm in, none of them feel right to me. Yeah. None of them feel 100% fair, and I don't think we're ever going to get to a place where it is. So it's one of those things you're just going to have to work it out with the people involved and kind of go from there.
Yeah, I told all my leagues, because I'm a commissioner of law, I said, listen, the only fair way to do this is let the people involved in the games come to a decision on what they want to do. Yeah. Because they're the ones affected. Like, there's no league vote here, because you're not involved in this. This does not affect you, Mr. You got Bijan Robinson. Be happy with that, okay? So, I think people keep asking me, because I'm the commissioner of all these leagues, like, what's the most fair thing in my eyes? In my eyes, and I'm going to throw a little caveat on top of this, I like this as well, but is literally just, even though it sucks because they have tougher matchups, is whatever they score in week 18, you apply to those players. Unless the game is rescheduled. But I did see somebody say, hey, in my league, we are going to do that, but there's a caveat. If the Bills and the Bengals meet up during the playoffs, NFL playoffs, we're going to reserve the actual handover of the trophy and the league winner until it plays out that way. We're going to use those scores for the playoffs. And I actually like that the most because you get at least the same two matchups, different weather, different times of the year. Somebody could be hurt way that way.
And even home field could be different too.
Home field could be different, likely different. But I mean, again, there's no right answer. I'm just telling you what I like the best amongst my, you know what I mean? But right. Somebody else has to agree to it too, because that's a long wait. It could be the AFC Championship game. And
that's what I mean. Like you got to the people have to get together in the league that are affected by this decision and come to some sort of agreement before the games kind of start this week, and to kind of figure it out and hash it out. I mean, otherwise you're really limiting yourself.
Right.
If you don't get it figured out here the next day or two. So that's what I mean, get out there, get it figured out, get out ahead of it.
Yeah. It's just one of those situations, man. It just is what it is. It can't be controlled. It can't be changed. And yeah, it stinks to work really hard for something or get in somewhere and you finally get to the pinnacle to win the championship. And then if it's your first year to have opportunity to win and you get there with all these studs, because we're talking about two teams that have a lot of studs. So everybody's really affected here. I only had one league where they didn't have any of these players on the roster, and it didn't matter. One league out of all my leagues, it didn't matter. I've had like 4 leagues where the other person conceded because they knew they couldn't win. Like the odds of them winning, like they were down 40 and they had T. Higgins left. Like they knew they probably weren't going to win. So they just conceded, which stinks because can T. Higgins score 40?
It's possible.
Daniel Jones can. Absolutely T. Higgins can. So anything is
and if
possible.
Justin Jefferson could score 2.5 points, like that could also be in the realm of possibilities for anyone.
For sure. Weekly variance is crazy. I mean, I lost in my semis because of Mike Evans and Tom Brady. Had I been in the ship, I would have easily won because of Mike Evans and Tom Brady. So that's just fantasy football.
My wife is playing. She doesn't play fantasy football, and she's playing this year. She said to me, she's like, because she had Josh Allen. She's like, well, I should automatically win because I have Josh Allen, and I'm only down 9 points. I'm like, no. She's like, what do you mean no? I'm like, Josh Allen, the very next play, could have got hit and twisted his ankle or hurt his knee or hurt his elbow again and gone out.
Or a concussion can knock these players out at any point.
And they get pulled.
Any point, and they're pulled. And they might not even be that, like it could just be you have concussion-like symptoms,
Sure,
and you go in the tent and you never come back.
And I don't think about that either.
Right. It could happen at any point with any one of these players. That's why.
And we see guys surprisingly just have terrible games sometimes.
Right.
You mentioned Justin Jefferson. I mean,
Saquon Barkley.
It's
Dalvin Cook. Thanks, fellas, for not showing up.
right, it's in the realm of possibilities for them to just stink up the joint.
Yep.
So it's possible. And then my wife, after I told her that, she's like, oh, I guess that could happen. I'm like, yeah. Like, you don't understand. And I literally used Matt's example. I was like, if you went to a championship game and you were down 3 points, and you had Justin Jefferson left, you'd say, just give me the title. It's 100%. Not even 90. It's 100% I'm going to win.
Oh, yeah. I would go into that game so confident.
And you would have lost.
And I would have lost. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
we just don't know. And that's the unfortunate part about it. But, I mean, I guess the caveat to that, or the bright side, would be that you just don't know about next week either.
Right.
They could easily do the same thing.
That's true.
So good luck to everybody trying to figure it out. Just put an asterisk next to the person who wins, unless it's me. Then just put a smiley face and a thumbs up emoji. Way to go, Rich.
Neato.
So today, though, besides that, again, it's great to be back after a couple of weeks. You know, I hope everybody had a very happy holiday, a safe New Year. I know I had a fantastic week. Well, actually, no, I didn't. I went snowboarding for a week, but then, like, literally the morning of Christmas, I woke up and one of my pipes burst on my 3rd floor.
That was a little rough.
I woke up to a 1/2-inch water in my basement. I have a finished basement with a kitchen, all kinds of nice stuff. So water just came all the way down, destroyed my house. So,
I mean,
besides that,
yeah, you say that's bad, but indoor water features can be very nice, Rich.
oh yeah, I was down here.
I'm soothing. Just
My wife didn't understand it. I was laughing, like trying to turn off the main water. I had Niagara Falls pouring on my head. I'm laughing. She's like, "Why are you laughing?" It's Christmas morning,
right.
and I'm like, this is just so stupid. I'm like, what are we gonna? She's like, well, you're not mad. I'm like, what am I gonna about what? Like, I can't do anything about it. Like, our house is screwed. You know, like, I guess we're gonna get some new stuff.
Yeah, some people pay a lot of money for indoor water features, Rich.
It's true.
You got yours for free.
Oh, dude, I woke up Christmas. I was glistening. So, yeah. Besides that, everybody else's week was good.
I'm glad it's gone. This year has gone a little bit better than the end of last year for you.
My favorite, before we get into the show topic, I got to tell you this one story real quick. It's really funny. We went snowboarding on Friday, Matt and I and our families, and Matt's son like wiped out twice, super hard. Once he was with me snowboarding down, and I had to stop. He like wiped out really, really hard. And the next morning he wakes up and he's like, man, I don't know about that bed. And I'm like, why? He's like, my neck hurts.
My neck hurts. He's like, I don't know if it's the pillows or the bed. I'm like, dude, it was the biff, man. You
flipped in the air.
You wiped out right on your head, man. It was the fall. He's like, oh yeah, oh yeah.
He would have been taken in the medical test.
Matt gave him a concussion test.
I gave him a concussion test.
It's just so, dude. Saturday morning, he just wakes up, comes down, starts rubbing his neck. He's like, oh, pillows, the bed, I don't know. Dude, you fell on your neck. I was like, what? Your legs hurt too?
I was a trained EMT at one point in my life, so I gave him the quick pen test,
and he passed.
He passed.
So we kept going snowboarding.
There we go.
And he wiped out twice more.
There you go.
He was real timid after that. That was a big biff. I got like I don't know if you snowboard or ski or anything like that, but I'm on a snowboard, and sometimes when you snowboard, you have to strap in like kind of standing up and kind of get behind people, and I got like a rush of skiers that went past. So James went, Rich went, a bunch of skiers. So I get on the scene and like he's just on the ground like doing this with his head, you know. So I arrived a little late to that party, but.
It was the fastest point in the mountain. He wiped out hard.
So I didn't get to see it.
Like to the point where like I stopped immediately, unbuckled to start walking back up to him, make sure he was okay. But yeah, it was the bed. So it was even
the
hill.
bed.
Yeah, gosh, man. Get some real beds.
So today's show, we're going to do a way too early 2023 rookie mock draft. I know we finally get into a lot of chatter beforehand, but that's what we're going to do. Now, always keep in mind, we do this every year. It's a way too early mock draft. Right. What we say now will change drastically. But we'll give you a good idea of the players available.
Right.
There'll be a lot of players that sneak up into the first, and there'll be players that sneak out of the first. Sure. But it's safe to say the guys we take here at the top here, it's going to be pretty hard for them to get out of the first.
Yeah, I mean, and I spend more time than you guys do on college guys. And even for me, I know mine will change because I haven't done my deep dives on anybody with the exception of Bijan. That's the only one I've done a deep dive on. So even these guys will change for me. I've done surface level stuff and watched a little bit of tape, but not my deep, intense note-taking, grading for the nerd score. Like I haven't done any of that yet.
I did very casual for this, like same thing, like just scraping the surface. And then actually when we were doing the draft, which we did earlier today, I dove a little bit deeper on the guys that I picked. Sure. Just a little bit deeper, like a couple more games real quick. That's what's nice about the Dynasty Nerds film room is you can watch a whole game in 5 minutes.
Right.
So able to jump in there and see these guys' tape was pretty good. I can't wait to hear it. Matt's got some good stuff on Bijan. But before we get into that, we got to talk about our friends, and our friends are our advertising partners. And let me tell you about our friends at FFPC, because we haven't talked about them in a while. Right now, our friends at FFPC have a special playoff challenge for all fantasy football players. There are 2 separate playoff challenge contests, a $35 entry and a $200 entry. Both contests have the same rules and format. $200 entry contest has a $500,000 grand prize.
Whoo!
$500,000 grand prize with $1.4 million in total prizes. The $35 entry contest has $100,000 in grand prize, $476,000 in total prizes. Both playoff challenges contests run the length of the entire NFL playoffs, starting January 14th with the wild card weekend games and ended on February 12th with the Super Bowl. There is no draft or salary cap. You simply select your roster once. This roster will be your roster for the entire duration of the contest. There will be no waivers or free agency. Each roster will consist of 12 NFL players in the following starting roster format: 1 QB, 2 running back, 2 receivers, 1 tight end, 4 flex of a wide receiver, running back, or tight end, 1 kicker, 1 defense. You may choose only 1 player per team. And
very interesting twist.
That is a twist. So no stacks.
No stacks.
And you may be able to choose from any of the 14 playoff teams. For instance, if you select Tom Brady as your quarterback, you can't select any other Buccaneers on your roster, including kickers and defense. Rosters lock on Saturday, January 14th at 4:35 p.m. There's no free agency or roster adjustments for the duration of the contest. FFPC scoring rules are in effect. Running backs and wide receivers, 1 PPR, point per reception. Tight ends, 1.5, so it's tight end premium. Each week's score will be added to your team's total, which will obviously Travis Kelce's 1-1 here. Will accumulate for the duration of the contest. Super Bowl points will count as double towards your team's total. Teams will win with the most points at the end will win the big money.
So not only do you want the best player from each team, but you want the best you want the best player from the team you think is going to be in the Super Bowl.
Right. So that would definitely emphasize the quarterback a little bit for me, because if I'm going to double the quarterback score in the Super Bowl, that could be pretty nice.
Jalen Hurts double down on the Super Bowl run. Ooh.
So this sounds really fun. A lot of money involved. I'm definitely joining, but we have a big promo for our listeners only. When there's a link in the show description, so all you gotta do is click that link, and you can either enter the $35 entry or the $200 entry. If you use the promo code NERDS, you get $25 off your entry.
Imagine a Jalen Hurts, Travis Kelce. If those are your 2 guys left for the Super Bowl,
quit ruining my strategy.
My strategery.
Ruined.
Ruin it. Yeah, so you and everybody else is going to have that roster, because there's no draft. So you got to line up your set if you want. Use the promo code NERDS to get $25 off your entry.
So on a $35, if you're a new member,
$10.
$10 for a chance at
I want to make sure,
100,000.
and just in case that's not right, like I'm reading it wrong, if it's just... I don't know.
They're spreading false information.
Unless it's only $25 off the $200 entry. It says $25 off your entry.
It's $25 off anything, the 35 or the 200. It is.
Really?
Yeah, that's what they said.
$10 to win $100,000.
Yeah,
that's not bad. You got to be a new subscriber to get that $25 off.
I have a new email.
Yep.
I have emails just in case for this. Check them out. Click the link in the show description. This is a great opportunity.
Absolutely.
I didn't read this in detail, but like I'm joining.
Get in.
How many emails you got?
Lots.
Good.
Are we eligible?
We are now.
My wife is.
Awesome. All right. Cool.
Oh, Ashley Dotson won 1.4 million.
Ashley Dutson.
Dotson.
Parrot Grice, winner of the $100,000.
So let's kick in to our way too early 2023 rookie mock draft. We're going to kick it off.
I just got goosebumps.
Goosies?
We're going to take the mic and hand it over to the 1-1.
Oh, is that me?
For the worst team in the league. Matt O'Hara.
I just lost my whole sheet. Hold on. Let me find it. Let
me guess who you're taking here.
So, yeah, with the 1-1, pretty easy. I'm going to go the chalk here, and I'm going to go Bijan Robinson.
To
Obviously,
be clear, this is one QB.
This is one QB league.
Although you might take him either way.
One QB PPR.
Right. So, he's listed 6 foot, 220 pounds. He had 1,580 yards last year on the ground, 18 touchdowns, along with 19 receptions, 314 yards, and another 2 touchdowns. This is a real easy guy to get behind, right? I mean, he does everything really well. He's built to operate as a 3-down back. He catches the ball really well out of the backfield. The one concern I saw, and I have very limited amount of tape study on any of these guys. It's been very quick. I looked at the Iowa State game. Fantastic catch, by the way, in that Iowa State game.
Yeah, he did.
He does a little bit too much dancing for me.
It's funny you mentioned that.
Because in the NFL, that can be the difference between you losing 3 or 4 yards, and if you just get upfield, getting 3 or 4 yards, especially when you're as talented as Bijan Robinson. So that was the one thing that I was like, wait a minute. If they could coach this out of him, this dancing crap, he's going to be fantastic. But if he is always trying to make the big play, dancey, shaky, he's going to have some negative plays in his script here.
That is the one note. Now, I'll wax poetic about him here in a second.
Sure.
But that was my biggest note. If there was one weakness, it was also one of his strengths was how quick his feet are. His feet are so quick, but he relies on that too much. He dances too much. And sometimes his feet get going quicker than his head can even process it, feels like. Mm-hmm. Where his feet, he's just going. And I even saw games where he would trip a little bit and stumble because of how quick his feet are going and always moving. So I like that he has the ability to be able to do that. But you're right. That is one thing he's going to have to clean up and get a little bit more linear, a little bit more straight, north and south on plays. Not that he can't dance at all, but just be a little more selective.
He needs to just watch some one-cut tape.
He needs to watch some Nick Chubb.
Yeah, he needs to just and then go. You know what I mean? Instead of this bouncing around. And yes, there are going to be times when that's useful.
Sure.
And navigating, getting through the line and stuff like that. He's just a hella talented guy. So, I mean, this is an easy pick to make. I was being nitpicky, and that's one thing I think he's going to have to clean up based off one game that I watched.
And we're talking about a guy that, to be clear, is more likely than not to be the dynasty running back 1 overall by the time draft night's over. Mm-hmm. If you're going to do a startup, he'd probably be the first running back off the board. Ahead of after Jonathan Taylor's year, ahead of Jonathan Taylor. You're talking about guys that like Saquon, you know what I mean? Or you're going to take the youth. So that's where he's at talent-wise. Just an overall top to bottom, almost perfect running back.
You're absolutely right. I've tweeted this out, but in my personal nerd score, we've had a lot of good running backs that have been towards the top of my score. J.K. Dobbins has the highest score so far, but right behind him are guys like Swift and Brees and Taylor and Javonte, and those were the top 5 guys. I don't know the exact order off the top of my head, but those were the top 5 guys. All guys that have shown, there's been some injuries there, but have shown like really good promise, look like really good running backs. He has far and away the highest score, even out of all of those guys. He truly looks like somebody that could be the best running back prospect that we've seen since Saquon Barkley, and possibly even better than Saquon Barkley. Like, he has all of the tools. He's got the prototypical size. I mean, when you're coming in at 220, you're built like he is. You got the feet that he has, the hands that he has. Like, he has all the tools. Obviously, still got to get to the right situation, got to put it all together. There's still a lot of moving parts here, but he's going to be one of the best running back prospects we've had for a very long time. And there's really not a lot of negatives there.
Yeah, I mean, look what he can do at the same size that Zach Charbonnet could do.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about two completely different running backs.
Yep.
And with that size at the next level and where he'll get drafted, you're talking about the most important thing that we're talking about here is a 3-down running back.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
A guy that will not come off the field. And that is dynasty gold.
Yep.
Fantasy football gold. He's going to catch passes. He's going to run the football. He's going to get you 20 points per game. He is going to be a true difference maker. He's going to be a playoff carrier. He's going to be like the Austin Eckler, but better, right? Like, because he can catch those kind of footballs. Now, granted, he's got to be in the right system for that as well. You know, if he goes to a system and they're like, hey, yeah, we know Bijan catch the ball, but we've got Jerick McKinnon. He catches the ball very well, and he's a really good 3-down back. I mean, we're just going to use him.
We'll just call it getting Nick Chubbed.
He could be Nick Chubb.
He could get Nick Chubbed.
You know what I mean? So it's possible, but a perfect prospect almost, which is hard to come by.
As close as we've seen to one in a long time.
Yeah, since probably Saquon.
Saquon.
Until next year when
honestly.
Marvin Harrison Jr. comes out.
Oh, he's so good.
Since Calvin Johnson. Since Zeke Elliott was a perfect prospect.
He was really
in my
good.
eyes. So
Zeke was really good.
He was really good.
And I remember I thought it was before in the podcast when Zeke came out on this show his rookie year. I was like, Zeke is my running back 1 overall in Dynasty, and people give me so much flack. Like, oh, how can he be your Dynasty running back 1? I'm like, because I watched his college tape, and I'd rather have him than anybody else in the NFL. And people are like, you're an idiot. And then he went out and just played really well. And I was like, there you go.
There you go.
And we don't need Bijan to be running back 1 overall. If he's top 3 for the next 5 years,
You're thrilled.
That's it.
That's gold. Like you said, Dynasty gold.
You're absolutely thrilled.
All right. Am I on the clock?
You're on the clock.
Sir.
All right, so I'm on the clock here, and I'm going to stick with the running backs as well. I think in a 1 QB league, I think we're going to see this probably combo pretty consistently.
This is pretty chalk. Yeah.
I'm going to take Jahmyr Gibbs, running back out of Alabama, coming off a pretty solid year. 151 attempts. Not that he's not the exclusive guy, no, but nobody ever is. But 151 attempts, 926 yards, average 6.1 yards per carry. Had 7 touchdowns, a long of 76. 44 receptions for 444 yards, 3 touchdowns. The best comp I can give here for Jahmyr Gibbs, like to make this simple for everybody way too early, is when you watch him play, he just reminds you of Alvin Kamara.
Yep. And that's 100% what I saw on my one tape.
I think the only difference is I think he's faster.
I think he's faster. I think he's slightly better between the tackles. And yeah, that's
I didn't see a ton of between the tackles in the game that I watched. So I can't really comment on that yet, but I do think he's got probably more long speed. How about that?
Yeah.
Dude, his contact balance is insane.
Fantastic, especially for not being a huge guy.
And that's the one thing I want to see because he's listed at 5'11", 200 pounds. I think he might be a little bit bigger than that once he actually gets weighed in.
We'll see.
Based off what I saw, I don't know.
It's tough to say.
It is tough to say, though, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes these guys come in and they're like 202. And you're
Right.
like, oh, okay. He's not that much bigger.
Yeah. And sometimes you get guys that you're sure they're going to be bigger and they win. And you're like, how do you lose 5 pounds?
Right. Or
You've been prepping for the draft. How'd you lose 5 pounds?
195. Yeah.
Come on, man.
Because they're running, trying to get faster
Right.
for the combine and crap like that.
Jahmyr Gibbs was talking the other day about the draft, about his speed, and how he's a speed guy. And they asked him, like, well, so what do you think I run the 40? And he said at the Combine's premiere event, before he transferred from the Alabama, from Georgia Tech, he had to run the 40. He ran a 4.32.
That's not bad.
And he thinks he could run faster now than he did then.
Yeah. I really like the Alvin Kamara comp. The one that always came to mind for me was Jamal Charles. A guy
Another good comp.
Who, he was fantastic for fantasy football managers.
Probably a better comp because of the speed. Jamal Charles is probably a much better comp. But you're talking about two.
If you get the production from either one, you're thrilled.
Yeah, we just mentioned 2 decade winners. Not like a couple of years. Like Alvin Kamara was a running back 1 going this year, every year of his career, 6 years straight.
Yeah.
Jamal Charles was a running back 1 for
That was something gross.
unbelievable too. Like
7 years or something.
I mean, we were talking about greats, like all-time fantasy greats going over the last
Since
many years.
In the 2000s.
You're talking about Alvin Kamara is the most recent. And then you're going LaShawn McCoy.
And I think it was
Jamal Charles.
Before that.
Adrian Peterson was kind of in that max too, but he didn't offer the PPR points. But it was LaShawn McCoy, Jamal Charles, LaShawn McCoy, Alvin Kamara. And now we're like, who's the next all-pro? So if Jahmyr Gibbs can come and do that, then that's what you're going to get. So to me, he's the clear-cut number 2, speed, pass-catching ability, contact balance, the way he runs in the open field. Like he's
got very good next-level vision. Like in the open field, he's got very good open field vision.
He cuts very well, shows good burst. I mean, there's a lot of little things that he does that you just, as a fantasy football player,
it excites
more
you.
than less. It gets you really excited.
Right.
You know,
his prospects, when I didn't know anything. I didn't know him from Adam, basically going into it.
Right.
And it took about 10, 15 seconds of watching game and they start popping. You're like, oh yeah, I like that. That works in the NFL, like right there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, get him in some space. He's going to make people look silly.
Well, and even at Georgia Tech, where obviously they're not a very, they're not a powerhouse.
Right.
He was still very highly recruited. How he ended up there, I have no idea, because he was he was a high 4-star guy. And, but even there, like he had one game where he had 10 carries. I want to say it was for like 10 yards. And I was like, man, is this guy like, maybe he's a bust. I don't know. And then I scrolled over to see his receiving stats, and he had 140 receiving yards. It's like he finds ways to win. Like he just finds ways to win, even on bad teams. So to see him do it on poor help, not a lot of help, to some of the most help you're going to get in college football at Alabama, he was just consistent through the process where he would just find ways to make plays, and that's what you're looking for at running backs.
If he runs into 4.3s, he's going to go in the first round.
Absolutely.
If he goes in the first round to a late team that's really good, it's going to be a real interesting strategy. And I'd think about this now before it gets to this point. And I'm not saying this is 100% what you should do. But from here going to the draft, Bijan's stock is just going to be through the roof. It might not be a bad idea on a points per game basis to go from 1-1 to 1-2 and pick up more draft. Because listen, the 24 class is going to be really, really good.
It's a solid class as well. Yep.
If that team has 1-2, their team's probably pretty bad. If you can get 1-2 and their first next year for 1-1, I'm just saying now, it might be a deal worth making.
Might not be bad.
Because Jahmyr Gibbs looks that good.
He does. He looks
in a PPR format.
I haven't done my enough to give him a nerd score yet. Bijan's the only one I've done enough to actually feel comfortable giving a preliminary one, and that'll even change once I do more game setting, get him more to 8, 9, 10 games. But Jared Wackerly has already done Gibbs and Bijan's the highest player he's ranked at running back in the past 4 years. Gibbs is second.
Yeah.
Still over Taylor and
Brees
and Javonte and like all of those guys. So it's just this is a good class. We've been hyping it up for a while, and running back has always been the reason we were excited about this class. There were other stuff too, and we'll talk about some other players in other positions, and there's some fine prospects, but the reason this class has been hyped is it's always been about the running back, and we're starting to see why. We're starting to kind of get to the point where we're doing these evaluations for NFL draft, all that kind of stuff, and it looks like these guys are who we thought they were.
And the reason I said it now is because as more people start talking on podcasts and listen to Dynasty podcasts, it could be this one, the more people are going to start getting a little bit more hip to Gibbs. I'm like, you know what? It's not a bad consolation prize to Bijan. So maybe it's just something to get. And again, it's hard to trade away somebody like Bijan. But when it comes to running backs, I'm going to say it all the time, they're the most fluid position on your roster. And if you could turn Bijan Robinson to Jahmyr Gibbs and Marvin Harrison, what would you rather have?
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
Love Marvin Harrison.
Right?
I'm so excited.
Because remember, your team's still going to be bad probably too.
Yep. Probably.
So get ahead of it. My pick's Jahmyr Gibbs. Garrett, you're on the clock.
I got to stop doing this myself. I feel like every time we do one of these, I put you guys in the spots where it's the before the tiers. And so we just dropped a tier, and now I got to decide between everybody else because here is really kind of where consensus goes out the window. It's really up in there. There's no consensus at this point as to who the top receiver is. Johnston's one of the guys people have talked about. Smith-Njigba is one of the guys that people have talked about. But also running back 3 is very wide open too. There's a lot of good players. right now, like I said, haven't done my deep dives yet. If I had to go with somebody, I'd be taking Sean Tucker out of Syracuse, and that's who I drafted here today. 5'10", 210 pounds, so he's got good size, good build to him. One of the things you love is his acceleration. I love guys with good acceleration, and he just has that 0 to 60 gear, and he can break off long plays all the time. Very good in the receiving game as well. This year had 36 receptions, 254 yards, and 2 touchdowns, followed by the year before, or after the year before, where he also had another 250 yards and 2 touchdowns receiving. So he's shown the propensity to be able to catch the football, do good things with it, but he's got the build to be solid between the tackles as well. He's somebody that does have a chance to be a 3-down back. I don't think he cracks the first round like I think Bijan and Gibbs will, but I do think he's going to be a solid mid-round 2 running back where teams can feel comfortable building their running game around a guy with his skill set. And by all reports, he's like one of those like really good guys too. Everybody really likes him. Teammates gravitate towards him. He always does this like weekly recap on Twitter where he like recaps like the game. It's like, we won this by this much this week, or whatever. I'm not very pleased with my performance. I could have done better here, or I'm pleased with my performance and I did this. So like he seems like a real genuine, like good guy. So I like Sean Tucker. I think he's going to be a really solid running back in the NFL. I don't know that he's going to hit the elites that the other two are, but I think he could be like a really good player for a long time.
And no, I initially look at Sean Tucker on the list. I'm like, who the heck is Sean Tucker? I'm like, running back from Syracuse. I'm like, all right, let's throw on the tape.
Jim Brown.
You're right. And I was pleasantly surprised by his running style, his acceleration, and just like his ability to change direction and get up to speed quickly. Just off of a quick tape study, I do like this guy. I think he's got a chance. I do think it is a step down from the other two guys for sure, as far as just like elite overall talent. So I see what you're saying there. And the ability to catch passes and I think create a little bit and be able to make guys miss in the hole, I think is a good kind of thing that Sean Tucker does. So I think he's going to have a spot in the NFL, and he does have a chance with his size, I think, to be a 3-down type of back for a team. I don't know I don't think he's going to be like a 7 or 8 year window guy. I do think he's going to be a shorter, maybe first contract only type of guy, but if you're picking third and those other two guys went, you still need to fill the spot at running back. He is a good option, I think, so far anyway.
Yep.
A lot of running backs. There's so many running backs to watch in here. That's why I felt so like there's other names on the list that you see and you're like, oh, that guy could probably be pretty good. And then you didn't even have time to like.
Yeah, there's 4 or 5 names that I thought could have been potential first rounders that just weren't. And some of them, it's because they're more like gadgety guys or they're more, whatever. But even like the gadgety guys this year are better than gadget players from other classes. So
and this is a process to get to where we need to be. This is literally the first
very, very
step of the year to get us to 5 months from now when we draft. Right. And if you're new to the show, don't worry. We have you covered. We will break down every single one of these rookies that should be drafted in your rookie draft in depth, like in detail. We will cover them by position in depth throughout the year. It takes us usually about 2 months to cover everybody.
Yep.
But you will listening to Dynasty Nerds podcast extremely informed on these rookies. And don't forget, we have the Dynasty Nerds film room to allow you to watch the tape on these rookies as well. So we will give you everything you need to dominate your rookie draft and come out the winner to put you in position to win multiple Dynasty League championships. Matt, you are on the clock with pick 1-4.
So on the clock, next pick, I did no tape study on this guy. People,
nice,
none, absolutely none, because I watched the games. Jackson Smith-Njigba, fantastic wide receiver out of Ohio State. Obviously, this year was a huge disappointment for the guy. He was just injured from day one, basically, and
0.
Yeah, and didn't play at all. But last year,
but neither did Jamar Chase.
That's right.
It's truth.
2021, he had 95 receptions, 1,606 yards, and 9 touchdowns for Ohio State as basically the third wide receiver there, who ended up leading the team,
right?
For a couple of other guys that
nobody big like Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave.
Chris Olave.
Nobody's heard of him
before the year started. To let our listeners though as well. And they were talking to the receiving group, like Garrett Wilson was projected to be a first rounder. Chris Olave projected to be a first rounder. They're like, hey, who's the better amongst you guys? And they both said Jackson Smith-Njigba was the better receiver. And that was right before his breakout year anyways.
Right.
And he goes out and has the better year than both of them combined.
Right. So he is an excellent player out of Ohio State. It's a shame that we didn't get a chance to see him this year, especially with Marvin Harrison. That would have been a hard combo to cover, to say the very least. So right now, I'm projecting him based off of what he did in 2021 to be the best wide receiver still. I'm going to rewatch all that film, fall right back in love with him again when it comes down to it. And I think he's probably going to end up staying here for me. We'll see if anyone else can knock him down. There are some other guys a little bit further down this list that are intriguing, but I'm just not sure that they have the all-around skill set that I'm looking for to knock Jackson Smith-Njigba off this pedestal.
All-around skill set really defines Jackson Smith-Njigba. He's a very good all-around receiver.
Yep.
His route running, his hands, the tractability, getting off the line.
I don't think he's probably not the fastest guy, right?
No, I think he'll be a 4.5 guy,
right?
Which is fine, which is totally fine. We got spoiled last year and everyone ran faster than we projected, so it's hard to know how accurate that was. But running a 4.52 or something like it's totally fine. I mean, freaking Keenan Allen ran a 4.71,
right? And
he's one of the best receivers in football. So I'm not going to overrate it too much if he slips a little bit because of his speed. It doesn't worry me.
I think he's probably going to be in the 6'1", 6'2", 210 range. I think they got him at 6'1", 200. He plays a little bit bigger than that, maybe. Mm-hmm. So I'm anxious to see where he actually stands in that when he weighs in, actually. But there's not much that he can't do.
Yeah.
So. You have to go back and watch the 2021 tape over 22.
Right.
So that's the one he hasn't played all year. But again, I mean,
it was a hamstring injury, a really bad hamstring injury.
Real bad.
Yeah, it was like a freak thing where his leg got pulled way back on a really awkward tackle. So he just never recovered. So that was his 2022 in a nutshell. He kept trying to come back and it kind of kept just tweaking. So hopefully, by the time all the draft stuff comes around, everything's fully healed. We get to see him go through the process as normal, because I think that's big for a guy like Jackson Smith-Njigba, just because he hasn't played all year, just to see that he's healthy again. Not necessarily for the numbers or anything like that, just to see that he's healthy again going into the season.
And a big pro is that he didn't play. There's going to be a discount on him this year. Yep. So if you love the tape in 2021 and you kind of feel like how Matt does, this is the complete package. Depending on obviously where he goes during the draft will change things, because the draft changes everything for everybody. There might be a discount on Jackson Smith-Njigba, who we going into this year thought was going to be the 1-2, behind Bijan Robinson.
Us Ohio State homers, there won't be any in our home leagues.
No,
you know what I mean. In our home leagues, there's no way he'll
go pretty quick there.
Yeah. He's still not as good as Marvin Harrison Jr.
He's not, which is insane to think about.
I can't wait. I can't wait for him to come out.
Oh, we're going to be talking about him like he's Calvin Johnson. I'm telling you now.
I believe it.
Start tanking now. So, all right.
Start getting rid of your good players.
Yep. Start tanking now. They can't call it tanking when you start dumping in January. That's how you do it. This guy might be good. You want him? All right. I'm on the clock next, right? At 1-5.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to stay with the receivers here.
Okay.
And I'm going to go Quentin Johnson out of TCU, wide receiver. He's a junior coming off a pretty solid year, 53 catches, 903 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Had a pretty slow start. Really came on those last 7 games where he had 800 yards receiving over the last 7 games. Real big upside player here. You're talking about a guy who's 6'4", 215 pounds, but he's wiry.
He looks wiry.
He's skinny, but he's
But he's strong.
He's strong.
Yeah.
He's a compact 215 with room to grow.
That's why when I first watched him, I had mentioned this to you. I wasn't sure how tall he was, and if he wasn't 6'4", he was pretty skinny. But it wasn't like I thought he wasn't a good player.
Right.
I was just concerned that he was small because I wasn't sure how tall he was, and he's very skinny. So just on film, I was like, is this guy 100?
How big is he?
60 pounds? 5'10", 160? Or and then it was Rich was like, no, he's a 6'4". I was like, oh, all right, that's way different. All right,
sure.
Because he moves pretty well too for a guy that's 6'4".
He moves really well for a guy that's 6'4". And this is why there's a chance when this is all said and done, and I'm Jackson Smith 21 tape is unbelievable. Like, he could easily be my wide receiver 1 because the upside for him is just through the roof. I mean, his hands, his route running is on a limited basis did not look anything to write home about. Sure. I saw a couple concentration drops, but his hands looked really good overall. Mm-hmm. But you talked about before, like, you love guys that accelerate. Johnson could.
He's got a gear.
He can burn.
Dude, he gets off the line so well. Mm-hmm. Like, you go back and watch a little tape real quick, and you're like, oh, let me watch that again. Like, oh, look how quick he gets off the line and accelerates and moves and then stacks his receiver and gets into a step. You know what I mean? Like, so quickly. Like, being 6'4", 250, knowing that he has a lot of room, he's a junior, to grow into that body too.
He moves well in the open field too. For a guy that's 6'4",
he's fluid.
He's very fluid, and a lot of times
twitchy too.
A lot of the times with those guys, they're tall, they're linear, they don't move real well side to side. He's shown that.
Loose hips, baby.
And that's why I was kind of confused that he was 6'4" when I was just watching the film, just because he moves better than you would expect from a typical 6'4".
I feel like he's going to kind of be, not because they're the exact same player necessarily, but I feel like he's going to kind of be this year's George Pickens, where his ceiling is incredible, but there is like some rawness to his game.
A little bit.
We'll see. You know, TCU isn't known for producing receivers. You got to remove the helmet, but they're not known for producing big-time receivers or anything like that.
Play the national championship game, though.
He is. He's about to play in the national championship
bold
game.
Statement as well.
Absolutely. Played really good against Michigan in their playoff game. So there's a lot to like. I mean, his ceiling is truly higher than probably any other receiver in this class, and one of the highest ceilings that we've seen in a lot of classes recently. So we'll see if he can live up to that ceiling, but the potential's there.
See, what I like about him from watching him, over the last couple of days, getting some quick film study in here, is when I watch him, it's like, man, what I feel really comfortable about him here, because I would have taken him probably at 3 instead of Jackson Smith-Njigba, but just because Jackson didn't play at all this year, is his floor looks like, for one, he's a first rounder for sure.
Yeah,
first rounder.
He'll be a first rounder.
Probably top 15.
I was gonna say a lot of people I've seen have him top 15 so far.
So he's gonna have that contract stability and draft status as well. But his floor looks like, okay, if that doesn't pan out, he plays just like he did like here in college. Mm-hmm. Worst case wide receiver 3, like worst case. Ceiling, top 5 overall dynasty receiver.
Sure, that
kind of ceiling. So. Very intriguing here. Like, him at 1.4 is exciting. Like you said, strong running back class, but I would not be surprised. 1.5.
Yep.
I'm sorry, 1.5. To get a player like that here at 1.5 makes me feel really good about this draft class. Already,
absolutely.
You know, and he's the kind of player that will probably, like, you know, if Sean Tucker goes in late second, he goes top 12. He's going to jump Tucker. You know what I mean? So in most drafts, I'm not saying like we don't do that, but he's probably going to end up being a top 3 overall draft pick. And again, not a bad consolation prize at 3 if you need receiver Smith-Njigba or Quentin Johnston out of TCU.
And that's the nice part about this running back class being so strong, is it'll do one of two things in your draft. Either it's going to push some good talent down to you, or you're going to be getting some good running backs at pick 11, 12, 2-1, 2-2. You're still going to be getting good. So either way, it's a win. It just helps the overall depth of the class quite a bit.
I'm in a draft where I have pick 1-3, and it looks like I'm going to have pick 112 is what it looks like. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to miss out on Gibbs. I'm going to miss out on Bijan, but I'm going to get the number. I'm not even looking at, can I use receiver too, like where I can get Sean Tucker or running back. Sure. Like, I'm already committed to, all right, I'm going to take either Smith-Njigba or Johnson, or probably the best receiver. I'm not going to take the third best running back. I'm going to take the best receiver.
Sure.
And this class is so deep, and there are some guys at the back end that I'm like, oh, that has a good chance. Even when one guy I'm taking here later, that I'll just take the running back then.
Yep.
Whichever guy falls. Yep.
Whichever guy falls, or maybe somehow Michael Mayer falls, or that's it really. 'Cause I'm not taking a quarterback at 1 QB, but
right.
You know what I mean. So that's where I stand there. So yeah, very interesting process. A player that I'm very excited to dive even deeper into and see, and just see how it all plays out with him too. Combine, NFL draft, and all.
Absolutely.
You're in the clock, 1-6.
All right. I'm going to capitalize on the depth of the running back class, and I'm going back to the position. Once again, I mentioned it before. There's not a real consensus yet on these running backs, but a guy that I've liked for a long time is Tank Bigsby, running back out of Auburn. He is very different from Gibbs. We were talking about speed and acceleration and open. This guy is much more of your physical, between the tackles, north and south type of runner. However, traditionally, when you get those guys, they are destined to be first and second down running backs. They're not going to be on the field third down. Well, this guy had 30 receptions for 180 yards this year. So he's very capable in the receiving game as well. He's not just limited to being this north-south guy.
And there's a couple backs in this class that are like that, like big body, like, oh, that's like a bruiser. But then you watch them play and like, oh, they have soft hands.
They have
too.
soft hands. There's a lot of guys that could project as 3 down backs.
Right system.
In this class. So the landing spot's going to be really interesting with this next tier. I don't think it's going to affect Bijan and Gibbs much, but with this next tier, I think it's going to affect guys a ton because one guy could end up going 2-2 in the NFL draft, second pick in the second round, and one of the other guys falls to the middle of the third. And we thought they were going to be pretty darn close. But then you could also have ones in a situation where, he's going to have to share the backfield with,
Chubb.
And the other one, it's wide open. He's in Atlanta. It's wide open.
A la Dameon Pierce.
So this will be I cannot wait for the draft this year. It's going to be really fun to see how all of this plays out. But
we talked about that in the show recently. There's like 10 teams that could use a running back. So there is, I know there's a lot of free agents as well, but there are some spots for these guys to come in and strive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So 6 foot, 208 pounds. But at 6 foot, he's got some room to even fill out a little bit more. So
I had him at 213. That was ESPN for whatever it's worth. I mean, not much.
This is pro, or I guess College Football Reference.
Right.
But either way, even watching him, you're like, man, he's got some room to even fill out a little bit more, even though he's already this physical back. So this is one of those guys that I want to watch and see like how he develops over time as well. Because Auburn, while he was there, was not a good team. One of the lower tier teams in the SEC. They weren't playing with the Bamas and the LSUs and the now Tennessee this year and different schools like that. So Georgia obviously winning national titles. So one of the lower end, but still produced, still put up good numbers. As a true freshman, 6 yards a carry, 4.9, almost 5 yards a carry, and then 5.4 in his junior year. So he was solid every single year. He's always put up good numbers. Not the eye-popping numbers that you saw from some of the other players, but he's been very consistently good. Good high school pedigree as a recruit as well. So lots to like with Tank Bigsby, and I don't think we've seen none of these guys, but especially Tank. I don't think we've seen his ceiling yet.
And a lot of the times with Auburn players, I feel like they are a bit raw. Just coming into the league, they tend to always have good athleticism and stuff like that, and it's almost like, I don't want to call them cast-offs from Auburn. I mean, like Alabama, you know what I mean? Like all the good guys go to Alabama, and then the people that are all very skilled, as far as athleticism, kind of end up in Auburn. But it does kind of feel like that sometimes because they're so close in proximity or whatever. So Tank Bigsby, I from the little bit that I've seen, I did like. I think he can operate between the tackles really well. He shows good explosion in short areas and stuff like that. I would be interested to see what he runs. I think like most players, I think he looked fast. Most players from Auburn, I think he looked fast on tape. So I think he's going to be a guy that is interesting, and he did pop a bit while watching him. I might have a little bit of what's his name still in the back of my mind. Who was the guy that we liked a few years back from Auburn that kind of that bit us in the butt?
That might have been before my time. I don't remember.
You say Auburn running back, the only one that keeps popping my head is Cadillac Williams and Ronnie Brown.
Okay. All right. Well, regardless, we'll see. Hopefully he pans out better than some of the other guys in the past that I can't think.
It's been a while.
That I can't think of their names. No, it was like 2 or 3 years ago.
No, I'm talking about since Cadillac and
Ronnie
Brown.
Ronnie, that was what, 04?
Cadillac's coaching
03
now.
Yeah.
Oh,
that was
been a while.
That was a long time ago. Yeah.
Well, we were still playing Dynasty at the time, so
we were.
Yeah, so all right, let's get into this now with the second half of picks. We're going to go through a little bit quicker just because we're running a little bit short on time. So again, we have plenty of time to break down these rookies. We'll actually be doing another mock draft next month, Superflex.
Yep.
Way too early mock draft, and then we'll go right into our rookie breakdowns here. And neither can I. But before we go into that, let me tell you about our friends at Prize Picks. Like I said, I was in New York. I made a ton of moves on Prize Picks. Came out pretty well, actually. I actually won some money. I felt really good about that. So what is Prize Picks? Prize Picks is you versus Prize Picks. You're taking overs and unders on projections, and you can win up to $10 times your entry. Like there's a lot of entries where I won like 33% or 3 times or half of what I put down. There's because there's different ways it pays out.
Sure.
And all you got to do is just look at the projections and say, will they do better or worse? 2 to 5 players. That's it. Multiple sports, football, basketball. When they start playing golf, college basketball, all of this within, you can mix the sports up and you got to take the over or the under on their projections, and you go up to 10 times your money. It's that simple, even MMA. And what's nice is they have a great app. It's easy to use. It's very simple. It's very clean. And if you use the promo code NERDS, they'll give you a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. So right now, let's say you took Kevin Durant over, LeBron James under, and Luka Doncic over in your prize entry, prize picks, and then they all hit, you can win from $20 to $200 on your action. It's that simple. You don't even have to get them all right. It's the best part, right? If you get 4 right, you get a certain amount. If you get 3 right, you get a certain amount. So out of those 5, you don't have to hit them all. But if you hit them all,
it's where the real money's at.
Rolling in the dough. So check them out, Prize Picks. Make sure you use that promo code NERDS and get your overs, unders in today.
All right, and let's also touch on our friends over at Prediction Strike. Yeah, we've been talking about them forever, but it's because they're great. They're fantastic. And we are now in rookie season. So listen to these episodes, pair it up with Prediction Strike. You will be making some great moolah if you do so. Go over there, use promo code DYNASTY, and you will get a free share of a player. That's predictionstrike.com, promo code Dynasty.
I will say, we've had a lot of success.
Lots of success.
If you're a Dynasty player and you listen to this show, anybody that we've ever said to buy on Prediction Strike, it's like almost doubled their money.
Yes.
So the sleeper by the week is Jahmyr Gibbs. Soon, but not
the
yet.
The moment they're open on Prediction Strike, buy Bijan, buy Gibbs. So let's get into the rest of our second half picks here, sponsored by Sleeper, the #1 Dynasty app out there today. Check them out. Sleeper, the #1 hosting platform, not Dynasty app. I'm sorry, hosting platform out there today. So we have to go here now 7 through 12.
Okay.
Like I said, I think we should just save it now. Just like make our picks, explain why we made our picks, and then go on to the next person. Where are we at on time, Matt? We're like 50 minutes.
Yes, about 51. Yep.
Let's dive into it. Make sure to check out the Dynasty Nerds film room if you want more in-depth detail of this. Of course, we have some mock draft articles on dynastynerds.com.
And we're going to be diving into these guys so deep.
Just wait a month or so.
Yeah.
Trust me.
This is an introduction for not only us, but for our audience.
Yeah. So, Matt, you're on the clock at 1-7.
So I was introduced to a guy called Jalen Hyatt.
All right, good pick. I'm up.
Tennessee Volunteers wide receiver, about 6 foot 180. This past season, he had 67 receptions, 1,267 yards, and 15 touchdowns. He was the Blitnikoff Award winner this year, and that is why I picked him. I didn't even really watch that much film on him, and then I was later told that this might have been a little bit high by one Garrett Price. So here he is, number 7. Guess what? People in dynasty leagues make goofy picks sometimes based off of this kind of stuff.
I don't think it was a bad pick.
Don't be that person.
I don't think it was a bad pick.
Everyone's got that person in their league that does it, though.
That's true.
We have a guy who literally drafts off the NFL draft board in our league.
Just whoever was next.
It's true.
The league's almost 19 years old, and there's a guy who literally just, whatever the NFL draft board says, and there's other guys in other leagues that we know in Smash Mouth, but there's a guy in our league, whatever the draft, NFL, however they go in the NFL draft order is how he would take it. That's his board.
That's hilarious.
Hilariously lazy.
Very lazy. Although sometimes it could be worse.
Does consistently. Lazy.
Lazy. No, even though I do think it was a little bit high for him, we're talking about somebody that'll probably be late second round, early third round for Hyatt. So I don't think it was, and he had 5 touchdowns against Alabama.
Are you talking about in the NFL draft?
In the NFL draft. Yes, sorry, not
in dynasty.
Not
draft.
in dynasty draft.
I thought you were talking dynasty
draft.
draft.
Oh, no. NFL draft. So
this dude stinks.
No, we're talking he'll probably be like beginning of the second round for dynasty drafts.
All right.
Is where we're looking at.
I'm not that far off then.
No.
For a way too early mock draft. It's fine.
And you pick award winners, that's never a terrible thing.
No. Well, if that's not terrible, then I'm up at 1-8, and I will pick a former Blitnikoff winner, and that's Jordan Addison.
There you go.
Wide receiver at a USC, 6 foot, 175 pounds. He'll be a junior as well. Transfer out of Pitt to USC, pairs up with Lincoln Riley. Comes into the year, 59 receptions, 875 yards, and 8 touchdowns. And he's somebody, when I watch him play, it just seems like a really solid receiver.
I agree with that. Yep.
He seems like a smart football player. He knows where to be. He knows how to run the routes. Smooth. He gets off the line really well. He stacks his receivers. He's just, when I watch him play, it looks like I'm watching an NFL wide receiver playing in college.
It's fair.
Reminds me a little bit of like kind of coming out, like when he's coming out of Maryland, like Stephon Diggs-ish a little bit. So this is somebody played a lot. It's interesting because of his size, 6 foot, 175 pounds. I mean, he played outside at USC. When he was at Pitt, he played almost exclusively in the slot. So it'd be interesting to see where he plays in the NFL. Now, obviously, the NFL has changed where before when you're locked in a slot, like it was like, oh, he's a slot receiver. Now they could be the number one receiver on the team.
CeeDee Lamb plays almost exclusively in the
slot.
And it can be really good for matchups and stuff like that. So it's not even a negative at all.
Yeah.
They run so many 3 wide receiver sets. It's a starter basically too.
Yep.
His size is probably his biggest, like just a smaller. He's 6 foot, so he's not small, but he's 175 pounds.
Yeah, he's wiry.
So he's wiry. But a ton of people. I mean, look at our boy Devontae, the most wiry he could ever be.
Dude, the past month and a half for Devontae Smith, he's been nuts.
He's a wide receiver 1.
He's looked so good.
We were never wrong about Devontae.
Fantastic.
And I hope you all listen and gobbled him up.
That's right.
Because the kid's a stud.
I mean, so is Jamar Chase. But
it's funny because we're doing we're actually going to review in a Nerd Herd show our bold predictions from earlier in the year.
Both so good.
And I actually had Devontae Smith in one of my bold predictions.
You did.
Yeah. I got 2 bold predictions right, by the way.
There you go.
I don't think I get any right.
No, you did not.
Shockingly.
And I
got a few.
I got multiple ones really close.
In my defense, I only made like 4 or 5.
That's true. You didn't make a lot.
You guys made like 12 each.
Rich had a lot. We could have put ours together, and I still don't know if we had as many as Rich.
I don't think so.
You had a lot too, buddy. We're going to go to the next show. So, yeah, Jordan Addison tracks the ball well. A little bit reminds me of Stephon Diggs. Real smart football player. His route running. He's a big play receiver, so very interested to see where he goes. Getting here, this is a good spot with a probably likely projection to possibly rise.
Yep. Yeah, and I've seen a lot of end of the first round for Addison, so of NFL drafts. So first round pedigree, not a bad thing.
On a good team.
On a good team, absolutely. So I'm gonna go. I'm going back to the running back well. So far, 3 for 3 going for the running backs, and I'm going with Zach Evans here. Zach Evans started out at TCU, ended up transferring this year to Ole Miss. But before Bijan was Bijan, Zach Evans was actually the number 1 running back in that class.
Was he?
He was. It wasn't until the very end of it that they ended up switching him, and Bijan ended up leapfrogging him at the finish line of when they finally do like their final rankings. Bijan leapfrogged him. Which Horned Frog makes sense. But all of that to be said, Zach Evans is still a very good back. There were some questions about some of the off-the-field stuff early on in his career, but later a lot of that was debunked. It was like, no, it wasn't as bad as people thought. He was doing some stuff for family and all that stuff. So that helped like clear a lot of things for me because I don't want guys that I'm having to worry about suspensions and,
availability just due to knuckleheadness.
Right, exactly. So he never put up crazy numbers.
Right. They're not insane.
But if you watch his film, he's one of those guys where you'll see him and be like, he's good. And then you watch one of those plays and you're like, holy crap, what was that?
That's exactly how it was when I was watching one of his games. I was just like, yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, yeah, that probably translates. And all of a sudden he just breaks this huge run. I'm like, oh, gosh.
Yes.
But do you worry about that kind of stuff in the NFL?
I do a little bit. Yeah. He's one of those guys, though, that I think with a talent like his, the right coaching system, the right atmosphere, he could absolutely thrive because when you're talking about skill set, I mean, he's got solid size. He's 5'11", so good size for a running back. They have him listed at 195, which I'm shocked by.
I have 215.
Okay, that seems more that seems more correct because he's a very physical back. Yeah. So 195 didn't make sense to me. But that's what they have on College Football Reference. But he's a physical runner. He's a quick runner. He can catch passes well. Like he could be like when we were talking about George Pickens last year of like ceiling floor guy.
Yep.
That's Evans this year. He's the ceiling floor guy in this class. His ceiling is up there with Gibbs and Bijan, but his floor is he just never figures it out. So we'll wait and see, but the talent is absolutely there with Evans.
I think there's multiple running backs where we talk about like that,
Yeah.
like in the second half, and who's going to hit pay dirt. Matt, you're on the clock.
Yep.
Your last pick in the draft.
All right, with the 10th pick in the draft, I'm going to take tight end Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame.
Almost took him.
Almost took him, but you didn't.
Tight end premium will probably go even higher.
6'4", 265 pounds, so really solid size from a tight end. And for the past 2 seasons, last 2021, 71 receptions, 840 yards, and 7 touchdowns. This year, in 2022, 67 receptions, 809, and 9 touchdowns. So this guy coming in with a lot of production from the receiving game, which is obviously very important for fantasy football. I did not get a chance to watch like a full game of this guy, but I've seen enough Notre Dame football over the past 2 years to know who he is, and I've seen him play.
Smooth.
And he's a very smooth guy. He catches passes really well. He's got the good hand-eye coordination. It's an easy catch for him, and he's not fighting or anything like that. By evidence, by how many times they throw him the damn ball. Just a really solid guy. I think this is going to be easily the first guy off the board in many drafts this year at the tight end position, and we'll see how high he goes in the NFL draft. I would be surprised if it wasn't, second roundish.
I've heard he's probably going first round.
First round.
I've heard he's probably going first round.
Bengals would be a great fit for him.
Yeah, so obviously, depending on landing spot, this could be a home run hit right here.
I read a lot of first round on him as well.
Yeah, a lot of first round. Literally, my only thing that I'm like, on him is what's his speed? That's the only thing with him is he's not the fastest guy, but you don't have to be at the tight end position, but there is a certain threshold you kind of need to meet. So that's the only thing with him that even like sort of scares me is speed, but everything else, he looks like a complete prospect.
Yeah, no, I think, is he a Dalton Schultz type of guy? If so, I mean, in the right situation, that can be great. If he's even a titch faster than that, then now we're really talking.
I think as a prospect for me, from what I can see, he's a slightly slower TJ Hawkinson.
Okay.
Complete guy,
Yeah.
natural pass catcher. We'll see how he's used.
Yep.
Okay. I'm on the clock now. I'm going to take Zach Charbonnet out of UCLA, 6'1", 220 pounds. This guy who started at Michigan, then he transferred to UCLA. Really good career numbers, over 3,346 yards, had 39 touchdowns. Last year, 1,359 yards and 14 touchdowns. Another big-bodied, bruising running back. But like we said earlier, that has soft hands. Really, there's a lot. This, at a quick glance, he's very intriguing.
Yes.
Now, I have not dug in whatsoever, but from the quick look that I did here, I came away like, I can't wait to go back and dig deeper because
He's fun.
at 6 foot, 220 pounds, you're like, okay, this is a guy. What I saw is what it's going to do. He's going to run into you and then hurt you. Because if you try to arm tackle him, it's just not happening. Couple real quick things that came away really impressed. Like, on a just like 2-game basis, right? I came really impressed with. One, his hands. Very surprised how, like, for his body style, the way he runs, like he has soft hands, the way he catches the ball. Looked into his stats a little bit more. You can count on 2 hands how many drops he's had his entire career.
Nice.
So
he's a 4-year guy.
Yeah, he's a 4-year guy. Less than 10 drops. Might have been 10, but like you count on 2 hands how many drops he has his entire career. So his hands are very solid. Very impressed by his contact balance. The guy's like a bowling ball out there. Kind of like a way bigger Kareem Hunt almost, right? Like kind of like that's what I kind of got by the way he's bouncing off players.
He reminds me of not who this player was in college, but who this player is now. He kind of reminds me of A.J. Dillon.
Okay. Really quick feet, big body receiver, soft hands.
Catches the ball better than you think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. He's not 250 pounds, obviously.
Right, he's not quite as big.
220, you know what I mean?
Not quite as big.
And that is a big difference, but I do like that comp. There was one thing that kind of popped out at me in a negative way, and I can't tell because it was very limited what I've seen out of him. Sometimes he looked like he was running with ankle weights at times. Did you guys see any of that? Like he looked a little slow-footed for me. Just at times. So I couldn't tell if it was just him being patient, waiting for things to develop in front of him. But other times it didn't really show up and he looked more explosive. So I was kind of...
I put a note on that. It was too... Like, I didn't think it was like slow ankles. I thought he showed really good like vision and patience, like letting everything kind of develop in front of him. And then because then I saw like his acceleration wasn't bad for a guy his size.
He has decent breakaway speed.
And he runs well. Like
I haven't done deep enough yet to say confidently one way or another.
I
that's something I'm going to be looking at, I guess,
Yeah.
when I watch the rest of his film, because I watched one game, and there were times he looked great and things looked smooth, and there was other times where I felt like, man, those feet are just kind of, he didn't have the foot frequency that I was looking for a running back to succeed.
Nothing great, it probably seemed like right now, but like he looked really good. Like somebody who could translate the next level and like almost like a reminder of Stevens, translate there and be a really good running back.
Like lead a committee.
Yeah, like I love how he runs behind his pads, right? Like he's not out there like being a big body and being silly with it. Like he's a very solid runner for his athleticism and size. Like he's
speaking of Jared Wagner,
good running back.
We talked about him earlier. Last season, he was debating. At one point, he had Charbonnet as his top back. Now he ended up switching it to Brees, and then Charbonnet didn't even come out, so it didn't matter.
And he could have came out last year and probably did.
He might have done better as far as draft stock goes, but there's a history of, and he was a highly recruited guy too. So there's a lot to like there with Charbonnet.
He looks at this point to me like one of those safe guys. Like if you're going back at the end of the first, kind of like how we felt about like Zamir White last year. Obviously, it didn't work out with Josh Jacobs.
Hasn't worked out yet.
An all time.
But if they don't re-sign him, you know what I mean, then it's fine. So like, I came away impressed on a short limited basis.
Yeah.
Last pick of the draft.
Last pick of the draft, a guy that I drafted in a lot of Devy leagues when he was a true freshman, and he's done nothing but produce. 5'10", 180 pounds, so solid frame for a smaller guy. Josh Downs out of North Carolina. When you're wanting somebody to put on a clinic as far as quick feet and route running,
Hunter Renfrow?
It's kind of like Hunter Renfrow. Honestly, like there are some similarities there. He's faster. He's faster than Hunter Renfrow, but there actually are some similarities there.
Probably better hairline too.
A lot more hair. You can see. I mean, you can see right here. He's got much better hair.
Hot dog.
But he produced right away. We saw him in his sophomore campaign, 101 receptions, 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns. This year, even though he was dealing with some injuries, still had 94 receptions, over 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns. So he's done nothing but produce during his career. Really solid player. I think he's going to be a fantastic slot receiver at the next level, and a guy that's going to be really, really reliable, moving the chains, making plays really quick in and out of cuts. And I've heard rumblings that even though he's not the biggest guy, that he might sneak his way into the first round too. But I think he's pretty safely in the second round of the NFL draft. I'm
interested to dig in a guy like that, man. I didn't get a chance to look at him at all before we did this show, so I haven't seen anything on him. But I did. I mean, I looked at the stats. They easily jump off the page at you, and I didn't even know that he missed time this year. That's how little I actually had time to look into Josh Downs. So that's even more encouraging looking at the stats. As far as him getting over 1,000 yards and 94 catches. You just, I mean, you don't get that sort of attention and that sort of targeting to get those kind of receptions unless you're getting some good separation. So that's something I'll be looking at.
All right, that is it. And, like I said at the beginning of the show, where most people's fantasy football season has come to an end, ours has literally turned the page to the 2023 football season. This is day one.
Day one. It just started.
And we have the next 9 months to get ready for the 2023 football season. And we're going to do everything in our power to do just that from a Dynasty Fantasy Football aspect. This will be our 9th year talking Dynasty Fantasy Football with you all. It's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to get into year 9. Next year's year 10, we're going to have to do something special. A decade of Dynasty talk.
A decade of Dynasty. We already got a name for it.
Yes, we do. All year.
Yes.
So like I said, we're going to do a couple shows here. We're going to do some third-year breakouts, sophomore step-ups, things along those lines, more mock drafts before we dive into our rookie content, which will be right around the Senior Bowl, right around then. And then we're going to spend the entire time talking rookies. By the time it's over, we're going to be so happy it's over because we're going to watch so much film. So much film. But we're going to break down these rookies extremely in-depth. We're going to talk about the NFL free agency, all that and so much more to get you ready for that 23 season. So by the time April comes, you'll be able to take a step back and we'll do some fun shows, take a breath before we get to August. We've been doing it a long time. We got the roadmap.
We do.
All you got to do is come along for the ride. Check it out, dynastynerds.com. We're back every week talking Dynasty Fantasy Football for Dynasty Rookies. If you do like the show or have liked the show, leave us a rating and review on iTunes. It's always appreciative, definitely this time of year where people are getting into Dynasty and looking for something to help them along the way. Our rookie content, second to none. Second to none.
True statement.
We'll be back next week talking not rookies.
Adios.